on my way to this new job site. It was the first day for the project. It was a big multi-million-dollar build in Mission Bay. The guy I was going to work with was Māori. He did the block, so he kind of had a bit of clout in the industry, and everyone knows who Māori is. So I was already a little bit intimidated by who I was going to go work with. And I showed up, and I just felt like a lamb going to slaughter.
What is success to you?
I think it was a learn to love it experience.
And there's always pitfalls that you can fall in, but then you've got no one else to blame but yourself.
Number one thing if you're struggling is to catch other people about it.
Cool. Bex Welker,
Hello.
Bex the Builder.
Yeah,
Welcome to the pod.
thanks.
Thanks for coming on. You're a female in building. That's no
Yes.
secret.
Yep.
Let's start there.
Okay.
How did you kind of get into the building industry, or maybe start even with earlier than that? Growing up, what were your interests as a young girl, as a teenager?
Right. So I guess to paint a picture for you, I have two older brothers. I grew up for the most part of my childhood with a brother who's 6 years older than me and one who's 12 years older than me, and spent most of my life with my dad. So there was a lot of male influence in my life. And then with my mum, she was a bit of a tomboy. She got stuck in. So I kind of just grew up around a bit of everything. I guess you could say I was a tomboy, whatever that means. And going through school, I grew up on the North Shore in Auckland. After high school, I took off overseas and went travelling for about 6 years.
Cool.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was kind of the naughty kid in the classroom, and I really didn't want to go to university. So straight after school, jumped on a plane to New York and did Camp America, and that was awesome. I would do that in the summer, and then in the winter, take my paycheck and go somewhere else. Ski seasons in Japan or Canada, did a bit of Asia, Europe. Met my now husband. At 23, I thought it's time to get a real job. And I was kind of traveling through Europe, and I'd seen all the cobblestones in the churches, and I was like, I think I'm done. So I stopped what I was doing and came home. Jake came with me, and I picked up a job working for the AFL, so Aussie Rules,
Wow.
Australian football.
Cool.
I was coaching AFL back in high school, like just as a side job. And the team there, they're awesome. And they said, well, we'll make up a job for you. Come work for us full time. And that was the first time I'd ever had a 9 till 5. Most of my jobs traveling were hospo or, very random jobs. So this one was pretty good for me just to learn kind of the basics. After about a year and a bit with the AFL, I kind of realized I love playing sport, but maybe not working in the sport industry. The weekends mainly were the hard part. But also, I guess I was 24 and I thought it's time to think big picture. What do you actually want to do for a career? And at the time, and still and always, construction was booming. And I thought construction seems pretty good. Like that's a good, sector to go in. There's heaps of opportunity, good money to be made. My husband not at the time, he's still my husband. He asked if you could do anything right now, no boundaries, what would you want to do? And I said, I'd like to be a builder. And I laughed, and he didn't. And I was like, oh, that'd be so fun. Imagine if I could be a builder. And he just looked me square in the eyes, and he said, why don't you? Give it a go. And I thought about it. I just dismissed it. I remember Googling female builder NZ, and nothing came up. I think there was a journalist who had jumped on the tools for a day at Stuff, and she wrote an article about how fun it was.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find anything. And I was like, yeah, it's not a thing. So I'll just park it there. But I had a friend who owned a building company, and I messaged him, and I said, his name's Mike, and I said, Mike, have you ever had a girl on site before? And he just kind of was like, oh, mate, it's not really a thing. But I do know a guy who you might be able to reach out to. He's looking for an apprentice, and I think he's pretty keen to take on a girl. And he gave me Troy from QBS's details. And sure enough, Troy was hiring for an apprentice. I interviewed with him and he gave me the job, which was awesome. But this was all in a whirlwind. I was kind of just putting the feelers out, and I just went and interviewed with Troy on a whim.
So what year was this?
Oh, this was 5 years ago. What are we, 2024? So 2019?
19? Okay,
I think
cool.
I interviewed with Troy in 2018. I think I started
Yeah.
my apprenticeship Jan 2019. I've got
And
my
what was
years right.
give me an insight. So what was that first meeting with Troy like? Was he sort of like, was he pretty keen? I mean, it's like a new
Yeah,
thing,
so he was
right?
definitely he was interviewing multiple people. He was hiring for an apprenticeship, a green apprenticeship, which is awesome, like someone with no experience. He has 3 daughters, and I think he had, I know actually now, obviously fast forward, I know that he was on Instagram and there were a couple of female builders on Instagram. Melbourne Chippy Chick, she's an Aussie. She had a page, and Chelsea Roper in Queenstown, she builds bro.
Yes.
Both of them.
I think I follow her as well.
Yeah, they're both awesome, and they were posting, and he saw that and he thought, hey, that's pretty cool. I'd love to hire, a female apprentice and have a good influence for my daughters. So that's why he, I guess, put the ad out. When I interviewed, I met him on site, and it was all go. There were people everywhere. It was a commercial project, so a little bit of everyone, and I had just come from my office job, so I was in like black suede shoes and I don't know, my Mazda Exceller, and I was a little bit out of place, obviously. But he just said, come give it a go, and I thought, why not? I think it's really hard to get an apprenticeship for anyone, a green one, with no experience. To just come in and be offered a job was super unique and lucky, I think. And I just try to say yes to everything. I think everything happens for a reason, and unless it's detrimental, I pretty much always say yes, which is why I'm here today.
Oh, that's very cool though, because even for a guy, I've worked as a hammer hand or whatever, like a labourer, on construction sites as a young guy. Even for a young guy, that's quite like a intimidating environment.
Definitely.
Going onto the building site, things are moving around. A lot of, manly men, I'd love me saying that. A lot of manly men walking around, like building things, making things happen. Guys wearing, carrying a sheet of jib all by themselves, walking past, like, gee, what's going on here? So for a guy, it's intimidating.
Definitely.
What was it like for a female?
So my first day, Troy had given me some uniform, but unfortunately he only had XL available. I don't think he realised when he threw me the shirt. So it was like, it looked like a dress on me, and I could only get these shorts from the warehouse that were men's tradie shorts because I couldn't find any women's workwear, which was fine. I mean, it's a pair of shorts, but the sizing was a little off. So yeah, I looked ridiculous. I had these new shiny boots, and work boots shouldn't be shiny. So I when you don't look good, you don't feel good.
Exactly.
So I already felt silly.
Super self-conscious the whole time, yeah.
I was already, well, you look like an idiot. On my way to this new job site, it was the first day for the project. It was a big multi-million-dollar build in Mission Bay. The guy I was going to work with was Marty. He did the block, so he kind of had a bit of clout in the industry, and everyone knows who Marty is. So I was already a little bit intimidated by who I was going to go work with. And I showed up, and I just felt like a lamb going to slaughter. There was just, it was scary. There were people everywhere. There was diggers. There was, but I was greeted with 3 guys, so Marty, Sam, and Tom, and they were lovely, like straight away. Marty didn't treat me any differently. So Marty was the foreman, and Tom was another apprentice, and Sam was a builder. And yeah, he treated me exactly the same, very kind, and kind of just got stuck in. Go do this, go do that. I remember my first job on the tools was to dig a trench for a silt fence, and it was a shovel. I was like, I know how to use a shovel, that's fine. But it was in gravel, And I don't know if you ever tried to dig a trench and gravel. The shovel doesn't really go anywhere. And I was like, oh no. Like instantly the self-doubt creeped in. I was like, I'm not cut out for this. And then Troy showed up on site, and here I am like trying to shove this shovel, and it's not like sand. Like it's not going anywhere, and I just look stupid. I remember being like, I think I'd be faster with my hands, and just started using my hands to dig this trench. And yeah, fast forward, I obviously started my apprenticeship. I did three months, not work experience because Troy paid me, which was great, but I did 3 months on the tools before he offered me an apprenticeship and signed me up with BCITO, which I think is pretty common. If you're going to do an apprenticeship, it's a big commitment for an employer to register with you with an ITO. So
yeah, 100%. And so you just 3 months just to kind of see if you're working well
gauge.
Together.
Yeah,
it's almost just like an attitude check, right?
Yeah.
If you have a good attitude, good work ethic.
And same for me, like that was for me to go, yep, I'm going to commit to this, or no, I'm out. After 3 months, I wouldn't say I loved it. It was really hard. And retrospectively, Mari is probably the hardest working man I know. He works like a dog. He's really good at what he does. So he definitely worked us just as hard as he works. I think we did some pretty long hours, and it was all earthworks. The start of a project is always the hardest, right? You're in the ground, you're in the clay, you're moving hard fill. It's a slog. And so that was my first exposure. And I remember all the guys saying to me, don't worry, we'll work with timber soon. I was like, okay, cool. And then everyone said that the first year is your hardest year. I had to dig this hole. I did stay primarily on my first year with that one project, which is also really lucky because I got to see a job from start to finish. Cool. Whereas, I don't know, quite often the apprentice might get moved around just because so-and-so needs, a monotonous task to be done at that project. But I was lucky enough to stay on that one. And I did have to dig this gigantic hole, which you probably need to see a picture to actually understand, but it was bigger than me. And the guys, I remember the boys were really worried about me, and they just kept saying, it'll get better, sis. Don't worry, like kind of patting me on the back, like, don't worry about this hole, don't let it beat you. And I remember thinking, this isn't so bad. I don't mind digging the hole. And I remember the end of the day, like everything hurt. I bet mainly for the rest of my apprenticeship, everything hurt after work. By Friday, I was shattered. Like Friday beers, I'm just, tired and gone. But yeah, I thought if I could do that hole, then I could probably do the rest of it. And they were right. It got a lot easier as the years go on. And you're no longer the lackey doing all the kind of laborious tasks. You actually get into the building and the framing and all the fun stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool how they took you under their wing, made you feel comfortable, and also so you said Tom was also an apprentice at that time. So so was that kind of nice having another apprentice that's a little bit ahead of you? So
I think he was in his second year at the time, and it was good having someone else, but I was definitely the lackey in that environment.
You're the low rung of the crew. So that's sort of standard, right? As the apprentice is generally quite alone, do their own thing. So that's definitely like a difficult thing for apprentices coming through, where they're going to be on their own, they're going to be doing all the crappy jobs.
But I get it, right? Like you do need to earn and do your time. Yeah. And part of building, there are some really laborious tasks that just need to be done by someone. And why would you get the guy who's getting paid $60 an hour to do it when you could get the guy who's getting paid $20? Yeah. It's part of the process. And I tried really hard to respect the process. I struggled quite a bit being an apprentice because I love to be in charge. So getting told what to do, especially and I think everyone goes through this point, towards the end of your apprenticeship where you think you know better. And sometimes I'd argue maybe I did. Maybe I did know that like this, it's actually a lot easier if we do it this way, bro. And you're just not getting listened to because You haven't made it yet. You haven't reached that invisible line of being a qualified builder where all of
Yeah.
a sudden you've got a voice.
So how do you find? So it sounds to me like you had a good attitude at least, even though you had to bite your lip from time to time.
Yeah, I think attitude is everything, hey. And I think what I say to anyone who, especially females who are looking to do a trade, is it's not easy. So it's a great job, super fun. But I think a lot of people sugarcoated it for me. When I was looking at doing it, they said, "Oh, you'll be fine, mate. It's fine. Give it a go. You're pretty tough, but it's a hard job." And yeah, Troy said to me in my interview, which was like a really good practical gauge. I'm quite a logical person. He said, "If you can lift a sheeted jib will probably be your hardest thing you carry." He was wrong. I'd say a sheeted strand board is the hardest thing you carry, but a bag of concrete and maybe like 2 or 3 sticks of 4x2, because those are the things those are the laborious tasks. And digging a hole, you can kind of go at your own pace, mixing concrete, all of that sort of stuff. But you do need to be able to carry a sheeted jib by yourself, really.
Yeah. So there's definitely a strength component that you
strength
had
is a
to
huge
overcome
part.
at the beginning.
I'd say on strength though, I mean, I'm not a stocky unit.
No.
I'm not made of muscle. But there's definitely smart ways to go about it, rather than, it's not just brute force, Sometimes it is with a sledgehammer maybe, but other times leverage is your friend, gravity is your friend. There's certain tools you can buy. Gloves are your friend. Quite often you're lifting something sharp and it's really heavy because your hands are dying, It's actually not about, and it's all about the technique that you use to pick something up. You get used to it. Carrying timber, for example, a 6-meter stick, it's really heavy if it's not centered on your shoulder. But if you can figure out where the pivot point is, and just be smart about it. Sometimes you might, instead of carrying 2 each, you'll carry 4 together.
Yeah, it's kind of like working to your strengths, right, and using your mind, your brain. I know I've talked to some female police officers in the past, and the obvious things people are like, you're tiny, you're a female, how are you going to rock up and take down 3 bad guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then a lot of their roles are very different, because they, when there's a scenario where guys are fighting or whatever, they generally send in the female police officers, and it like calms the whole situation down. And so it's kind of like you have to use your, you're going to just have to use your strengths. And it's not just like you say, if it was just muscle, then, those guys generally don't do the skilled trades, right?
Don't get me wrong, there's times where you just need muscle.
Yeah.
There's a huge LVL on site, and they look around and they're like, oh shit,
Someone's going to...
it's me and you,
Yeah.
I've had it before where we've had to go grab the Sparky because I just simply couldn't do what my buddy on the other end could do.
Yeah.
I mean, now that though, like construction now, health and safety wise, you really shouldn't be doing anything. I think we're at a time where anything I can't do, you should probably not be doing anyway.
Yeah.
If I am busting my ass to pick something up, you probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's like because guys have, sometimes a bit bigger egos, So we're like, well, give it. I'm going to have to, people are watching.
The toxic masculinity, right? But I
Yeah.
never had to struggle with toxic masculinity because I never had to prove mine.
Yeah.
I'm not a man. So
Yeah.
I didn't have to prove that I could carry 2 bags of concrete, I'm quite happy with my one.
Yeah. What do you, it's kind of interesting now though, right? Because how do you see the world, or do you see the world differently now that you have got into building versus beforehand, in terms of, people, there's a lot of conversations going around. Unfortunately, I think men and women fighting on the internet mostly around, women like, we don't need men, and men kind of going, some men being like, we don't need women or whatever. Do you see the world in any sort of different way around how how hard it is kind of building infrastructure, building houses, kind of maybe you've had a little bit of insight about how men's work environments are versus women, and has that changed any of your view or not really?
I think the industry needs trades, right? Like we're short on people, and the AFL did something really interesting in sport where people didn't want to play sport anymore. People didn't want to play their sport. And so they went back to their boardroom and they're like, we need to get more guys playing sport. And then someone just said, hey, why don't we try the women? And they created the women's AFL. And that has just taken off. And now they all have club premiership teams, and women's sport is huge.
Yeah.
And now their participation numbers have doubled because they actually decided to target the other half of the population, and it worked. And so I think that's what BCITO are doing. I think that's what Te Pukenga, who took over from BCITO, they're the new ITO. I think that's what they've realised is, we're short on traits. Why don't we target the other half of the population? It definitely, I think it's, not so much a boy-girl thing, but it takes a certain type of person to be a tradie. And typically those traits are found in men, I think. And so for me, the company I worked for, they could have women on board. It just worked. The culture that Troy had created and the vibe, I guess, it made sense. But I can imagine there's a lot of companies out there that are probably just best to keep as lads, as blokes.
Right.
For example, I'd say if it was just me and one other, if we were a 2-man band, there'd be a lot of projects that I don't know if we could do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's sort of it comes down to the culture of the employer who's actually hiring you, and then and like we said before, like work to your strengths. So making sure if you have like a team of 3-4 guys, one of them is a girl, and it's like there's always someone to like give a helping hand in terms of the strength, expertise if need be.
Also,
but like
the maturity. I think emotional maturity is kind of where I was more leaning. Quite often, if a girl's getting harassed, the problem is the culture on site, right? And it's the guys that have the problem. They've got a bit of growing up to do. And I kind of always, when I first came on board with QBS, a lot of the guys that I'd worked with, the only women in their lives were their mothers, maybe their partners if they had one, or their sisters. So they've never had to be in a professional setting with a woman. And so they don't know what to do with their hands. They don't know where to look. They don't,
That's such a good point, actually, because in in office culture, like there's a lot of women around, stuff like that. But and like in the trades, it's
all you've
dudes.
ever known since you left high school.
Yeah.
You went and it's you and the boys, and then all of a sudden you've got this girl who's with you, but you're not in the bar anymore, and you're not. It's very strange. Like, what's she doing here? So it is a bit confronting, I think, for a lot of people. I was going to say something before, but I think the key is to find the right company.
Yeah,
So,
I think you mentioned emotional maturity. Were you talking about that?
Yeah, emotional maturity in the team, and I think just like attitude and perspective towards women, particularly generationally, right? We've got all these different cultures and different time periods. So I live with a lot of I work with a lot of guys who were in their 20s and 30s. So it wasn't actually that bizarre that I was on site. It was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think everyone at QBS, and still are, like some of my best friends are still with QBS. They were on my team and they really wanted me to succeed. So it was never, I had a really positive experience on the tools. I know not everyone is so lucky, but I definitely think that trickled down from Troy and the leadership and just the foreman on site. Anyone new who started with us, they knew that I was one of the boys, whatever that means, and I belonged there. So no one ever gave me shit.
Yeah. And I think, I don't even, it's almost like, it's not even the intent sometimes with the guys to be weird or anything. It's just that they're just sort of figuring out as much as you're figuring it out. They also figuring it out, right?
But what they figured out, and the time period I figured out was about 3 weeks. It took about 3 weeks for someone to realize, it's actually not that different.
Yeah.
There's nothing really that special about her. What's the big deal? She's just going to work like you are. I think for me, it was probably more, I noticed the difference being the only female. It was quite lonely at times. There was, in my 3rd year, I was getting married and I was looking up wedding dresses. Theo, tatted up guy, bit rough around the edges, kind of grumpy. Sorry, Theo. And I remember showing him like my potential wedding dress. He was the foreman, and I was like, "Oh, bro, look at that." He's like, "Sick, G." And I was kind of like, I want more. Like, I want you to talk about the lace, or like, you know, what do you think? Like, tell me. And I just realized I was like, I'm not really getting the the female influence that I need. And the smoker chat, you know, sometimes I just wanted to talk about my feelings, and it wasn't the place. Smoko around the microwave and the, you know, on the deck was not really that kind of chat. And so, especially now that I've come off the tools and now I'm in an office with women, I realize how lonely it kind of got, a little isolating. But there's a happy ending to that, because Troy took on 2 females I brought them on our last project. So we had 2 girls working with us. And that was just like a game changer. It was actually pretty interesting dynamic. It was Theo, myself, Tanya, and Sarah. So kind of one guy, 3 girls, all working on this reno in Ponsonby, and I think it was awesome. And that was, for once the scales were tipped the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, all you're doing is talking about your feelings during smoker.
Yeah,
So-
poor Theo. I think he actually secretly liked it. I think he loved
or like
it.
just Taylor Swift banging in the background.
We did put on a lot of Beyonce. He definitely didn't like that. But yeah, and all of a sudden, the tables were turned, and that was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, that's kind of like a good end to a bow on the end of that story. So what was it like for so you got married?
Yeah.
And what was it like for your husband? Because he is a consultant, right? He's an engineer.
He's in civil, so he does everything below ground, and I do everything above. And I think he was super proud of me. I definitely, he loves the fact that we got to go shopping and buy all the tools. He loves the fact that now we are building on our own house at the moment. You know, those skills have come home with me. I think he was just super supportive. It wasn't, he's not surprised though. He's like, of course you were going to go be a builder. I've always admired builders. Jesus was a builder. If it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. But I just thought, and I still think this, that getting a trade and basing your career off something practical, tangible, and a skill. I've always wanted to either own my own company or manage. Like, I think that's where I excel. And so it's a really good foundation to just at least walk the walk for a little bit. If you're going to tell these people how to do their job, at least have done it for a little bit. And so, yes, starting in that sense and then moving on. When I started my apprenticeship, I did want to own my own company. That was my intention. And then I started to realize, watching Troy and learning more about the industry now, it's a hard slog. I'm not in a position, I'm 30 now, I'm not in a position where I want to spend all my hours of my day committed to my job. So I just thought, I backed out of that idea pretty quick, and I thought, maybe I'll go into project management, because owning and operating your own right now, especially in residential construction, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of stress, and it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be willing to kind of like put your family aside almost and work during dinner time and wake up early, and it's a lot of stress, it's high risk. And I'm speaking from someone who's not even in it. This is just what I see on the outside. So I can only imagine it's even harder when you're walking that. And I just thought, Troy always talks about just because you're a good builder doesn't mean you'll be a good business owner. I think there's this period where most people get to, they've done their apprenticeship, maybe they've done another 3 or 4 years after that, and they go, I want the next thing. And they're ready, and they go, well, obviously, it's quite easy in New Zealand to just get a business number, a logo, if you're lucky, a ute, and you're now a building company. Boom, overnight. There's not well, maybe I'm wrong, but there's not much else you need to do, right?
No, that's pretty much, and you just need to like perfectly line up your first project, like behind the scenes.
Maybe get an accountant.
Yeah.
And then
boom.
you could say, I'm self-employed and I own my own business.
Yeah.
And you can also contract, right? So there's that safety net where maybe I can't get my own work, but I could go and do some group housing, or I could do small projects. And absolutely, that's a path. Like, I would just say that was not the path I wanted to go on. It's hard. And if you're constantly stressing about when the next project's going to come in the industry, obviously there's a lot of highs where people have money, people are spending money, and it's all go. There's plenty of bread for everyone. And then there's a lot of lows. And so you need to be willing to go 3-4 months without work. And if you have people working for you, who's going to pay them? I just watched Troy, we went through COVID, and what else happened? There was another big major, and it was hard, but we never went without a day of work. In my 4 years with QBS, I never didn't have a job to go to. But at times we would go to his house and we were working on his deck, or working on his house, because he really didn't want to send us home, because obviously financially that impacts everyone. So he'd just pay us out of pocket. That's a luxury, though. I know literally my own flatmate has been out of work this week. So that's, a week's wages just gone because the work's dried up.
Yeah, and that's massive for, a lot of people, a lot of us work, 1 week's worth of pay, 1 week's paycheck. It really puts you behind, because we all kind of like, it's hard as it is, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of like, just to kind of add to that, you've talked about working with a boss that you consider like a great boss.
Yeah.
And let's give Troy his flowers. What are some, and maybe some other builders that run their own businesses can take something from this, but what are some of the good attributes that you've seen in Troy in terms of how he runs the company? Obviously, he has a public persona. He's very active on social media and all that. So he's got an active public persona, but he's got, also privately, him. So what are some of the good attributes that he has, and the way that he runs his company and the way he cultivates culture that other builders can sort of mimic in order to get some success?
I mean, he has a lot of the good traits that, like, a lot of good leaders. He leads by example, yada yada. But I think something that makes him unique, and what I really enjoyed working for him, is he's not afraid to just make these wild decisions and just, we're going to do this and we're going down this track. I don't know. He puts himself out there, like, very high risk, willing to take the risk to go and do this thing. And I've got a lot of respect for that, especially in this industry. And yeah, I don't know. He was just a really good boss to work for. I think the culture there is very respectable, kind of has done his time, I guess. I think everyone that worked there really just appreciated him, and held a really high standard. So that was something that I appreciated working there, especially listening to new guys come through. It was the only company I worked for, so I can't really compare it to anything. But I know that the standards there were very high, and quality was really important. And that, when you're dealing with a client for a year, you really get to know them. And so you want to give them, customer service-wise, you want to give them a really good product. And he was never short of that. So yeah. I liked it. It was like quite wholesome. Whereas other main contractors, you're just in there, get it done, get out. Let's make a quick buck, and quality falls away. So I quite liked being able to hand over something at the end, and you're proud of it, the client's proud of it, everyone walks away. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the one thing I wanted to ask earlier as well is that we're looking to get more females, we've had this conversation before, we're looking to get more females into the industry and giving them a path and so on. Let's talk on the other side. What are the benefits for a business owner to have a female working? And I don't want to make this male-female the whole time. And
no, you're okay.
But
it makes sense.
That's the question they're going to ask. Is like, I'm interviewing 4 people, 3 of them are dudes, 1 of them's a chick.
Yeah.
Why would are there some benefits?
This kind of, I'm also in the Army Territorials, in the reserves. So I get this question also for that. You know, what's the difference of having her in your unit? I think women kind of tame men. If you think about an all-boys high school and then you think about a mixed high school, great, positives to both, but when you get a group of young lads together, they're quite silly and, you know, they can run amok a little bit. I think having a woman on site often, like, matures the space, kind of maybe tones down. For whatever reason, apparently swearing is worse in front of a girl. So I don't know why, but it fixes the language all of a sudden. You can't say the F word in front of a woman. So quite often I would get a, sorry, sis. And I'm like, oh, I swear more than you, but okay. What else? I think the clients love it. It kind of creates, quite often, you know, when the wife would come on site, it was quite nice for them to have, you know, a woman to just be like, they feel a little less intimidated, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Just like a apprentice going to a site for their first day. It's quite intimidating for the client to show up to a construction site, you know, in their shiny shoes, and they feel like a fish out of water. So it's kind of nice. A lot of the clients that I worked for, I think they quite appreciated having like a woman that they could come up to and just have a chat with about their, you know, dream home that's getting built.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a warmer reception.
Yeah,
probably for the wife.
maybe just relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? I don't have anything profound here. I think what I would actually say is it's not that different. As business owner, if you take on a woman, what do you have to do different? Nothing. What Troy did different, he bought some smaller uniform, which was really nice. Yeah. He bought something that fit. So he started shopping with extra small and small on the list, which was awesome. He did give me my own portaloo. That one's a controversial one. The bathroom, I never needed my own portaloo. In fact, it wasn't a good thing. I don't know if I can say this on the podcast, but there was a sign. So there were two next to each other, and there was a sign that said woman's portaloo. And all the lads would use it because they knew that it was the cleanest one, because it was the least used one. There was one person using it as opposed to 10, and it just meant there was like this volcano of shit, and everyone would think it was just me, and I was like, it's not me. And then everyone come out of there like, oh, you've been busy. I was like, no, it actually got used more than the male portaloo. So yeah, I wouldn't actually encourage having your own bathroom.
So all the guys was going taking sneaky shits.
Yeah, in the woman's portaloo. I don't mind. Portaloos are
well,
gross for
we
men
should
and
say,
women.
Yeah.
It's just gross.
We should say allegedly. The guys allegedly.
It wasn't my volcano. I can tell you that now.
It's real funny though, because as I'm asking these questions, I'm like thinking to myself, like, man, is this like a 1950s interview? Like, what's it like having a woman in the workplace?
Yeah,
it kind of feels a little bit like that, which makes me feel kind of weird about it. But you know, people want to know.
I'd say it's changed a lot since. I'm talking 2019, we're in 2024. There's so many. I think BCITO put out a stat, and I might butcher it, but when I first started my trade, there was less than 1% of women in construction, and that is across the board. So that was even like quantity surveying and project management. Now, just for actual hands-on trades, I think it was like 4.6% of the BCITO database are now female, which is huge. There's thousands of apprentices. So, and also, yeah, it's definitely growing. I've noticed towards the end of my time on the tools, people would be a little less surprised seeing me on site. I kind of just got sick of answering or having to explain my existence every time maybe someone was walking down the street. Are you a builder? Yes, yep. That's what the toolbar's for. That's why I'm holding a skill saw. I'm a builder. And it just got a little bit old. But I kind of just thought, if I do this now, if I explain this to this one guy, that, women are on the tools, he'll never ask that question again. So I was just tackling one person at a time as they came on site, you know, and maybe they went home and told their wife, I saw the craziest thing. I saw this girl on site today. That was my logic anyway, why I had the patience for it by the end.
Yeah.
And And I'd like to think now, all those, you know, whoever they are going on sites now, and they see a woman, they'll just carry on.
Yeah.
It's
And it's quite honourable. I mean, I actually am really impressed with your attitude to walk, because you've kind of like, you don't have to do this, but it looks to me like you're very much like putting that on your shoulder a little bit, in terms of like almost speaking on behalf of women in the trade there, and really want to encourage like women getting into the trades, and you kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like you've kind of put like a bit of purpose behind what you're doing beyond just yourself, right?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I just loved my time that much, and I wish someone had, like, you know, like now if you Google female builder NZ, Chelsea might pop up, Steph from Melbourne might pop up, I might pop up, because we kind of advocated in that sense, and so many other women have, and now there's just endless examples of that it is a thing. I was guess maybe just giving back to how I got my job, just keeping the wheel churning.
Yeah.
But it's such a cool job. It sets you up for life. So like we can talk about kind of what happened after. So I did 3 years with Troy, got my ticket, got qualified, and then I did another 1 year kind of running jobs and just honing in on my skills. And then an opportunity came up to go into project management. And I went to Troy about it first and was just kind of like, what do you think? And then because it's commercial, it's something totally different. So now I'm a project manager in commercial fit out. Total different kettle of fish, you know, going from a residential builder to commercial fit out. But the opportunity that they gave me was really good for my career. And Troy was actually the one who was like, mate, I can't give you that. You got to go and kind of come back to me when you're more valuable. You know, go learn project management. And I think because I was with QBS for that long, it is good to get a different perspective and a total different business. It's a global business. It's a big machine with a lot of processes, and it's been really, really, a friend of mine, Jen Jones, she's the one who used to work there. She's the one who told me about the company, and it's been a really good learning experience. So I joined as a assistant project manager, like a junior PM, and I shadowed a lot of really talented people for the last year and learnt off them, learnt their different styles. And the beauty of like a junior PM role is you do a little bit of everything, but you're never the sole voice for a project. And that I really liked. Kind of just taking little golden nuggets out of each PM that I've worked for or worked with, and applying that to my own style. I can say it now. I think it's getting announced on Monday, but I got promoted from junior PM to PM in March.
Congratulations. So, that's huge.
Thanks. Yeah, it is huge. So, you know, that process, they said to me, to go from junior to PM is a big step. You know, the buck now stops with you, and you're in the driver's seat. So how hard you work in this next, it could take you 6 months, it could take you 2 years, but you're in the driver's seat. So I drove pretty fast over the last year. I've been hustling pretty hard to try and soak up as much knowledge as I can, and then just, I guess, make a name for myself in the company. So now it's Bex the PM, and I've got my own projects and don't know what I've signed up for. It's a hectic job, but I really like it.
Well, it sounds like an exciting challenge, like the next sort of phase of learning. What are you know, what are some of the skill sets, or are there any benefits for coming from a builder going into project management?
Oh, 100%.
What are they?
There's two ways to do it, right? And this is my opinion, take it or leave it. You could go to university and you could do it the traditional way, I'd argue, and kind of the global way. You go get your piece of paper, you learn all about laws and regulations and what the book says on how to be a project manager, and that's awesome. That's one way to do it. I'd say 80% of people do it that way. And then you get your opportunities as your career progresses. Maybe you take on a cadetship and you start to learn junior project management, Or you could do it the hard way, or maybe what I would even argue is the Kiwi way, is to work your way up a ladder. So start at the bottom and just keep grinding, waiting for those doors to open, saying yes to everything, and then getting offered, hopefully, that next step, which is what I did, right? Did my apprenticeship, chased project management, got offered a junior project management role, and now I'm there. And I just took a different approach. It took 5 years. It was a 5-year plan. I'd say what's uni, like 3? Maybe you would have done 3
Yeah,
a
3
year in a
years.
cadetship. Maybe you could have got there faster if you went to uni.
Well, I don't know, because you're a project manager now. At uni, you would do 3 years, and then you'd be a junior, and it might take a few years for you to, because you only
Depends
really
on the person, right?
Yeah,
Like,
because I've got a lot of friends that are in project management. My wife's she had a master's in project management. They kind of come out of uni and they kind of know nothing, right? So you kind of just learn. You kind of really start your learning when you get there.
A lot of my workmates, they follow that traditional path. They know a lot about like the legal side of things. So the book, the code, contract law. You know, I didn't get that exposure on the tools. I wasn't looking at the contract. They also knew a lot about the software. So Microsoft Project, even just like some of the basics and Excel and stuff like that. I've picked up, not from the tools. So all my other jobs in school before that. So there's definitely strengths and weaknesses. I think what I'm really grateful for is it gives me a bit of clout on site. So coming up to the builder and I'm like, look, mate, I need you to finish this by end of next week. Oh, nah. So we've got to go and get, that's going to take a Why? It's a jack frame. It's small. TV recess. You can knock that up in half a day. And like, oh, what? You know, I literally had a builder last week argue with me. He's like, I needed him to cut open this TV recess and move it over. And he was just like, nah, mate, can't be done. I was like, what do you mean? You've overframed it here on the sill. So you could clearly just knock that one out. Grab your saber here, I'll do it. And he was just a little bit like, oh, nah, fine. And it was quite rewarding. It was a nice little
This is builders getting pranked left, right, and centre by you
Yeah.
rocking up. And do they, half the time they probably wouldn't even know you're a builder, right?
No, I don't wear a sign.
Yeah.
But I do drop it in if I notice someone isn't giving me the time of day.
Yeah.
I'll try to just, and it does, people's attitudes change instantly. Because I think, I don't know what I look like to you, but maybe they don't take me seriously when I first get on site. I've got my shiny shoes, my shiny shirt, and a hard hat. Here comes another project manager trying to tell me what to do. So I do get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do not judge a book by its cover. This has been like
shouldn't do that.
the theme of this podcast. There's a lot of builders looking to get to the next level of their career. So they've done their apprentice, now they're qualified, they've done a year, 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
They're getting like itchy feet. You know, it's probably the time people get a bit itchy feet and they're like, what's next for me? So what you're saying is that there's absolutely a path into project management as an option. You know, if they maybe don't want to start their own construction company necessarily, what other options are there?
Well, project management's not the only way as well, right? You could be a quantity surveyor. So Sam, who I worked with initially, he actually jumped off the tools after about 7 or 8 years, and he went into quantity surveying. Project management's just where my mind goes because I want to be a manager. But I know plenty of people who just that is their worst nightmare, being in charge of all these projects. What else can you do? You could go into design. I have a friend that's building at the moment that's considering that. I think a trade is a really good foundation to just open up a door. And kind of touched on it already, but just saying yes to everything, and on top of that, putting your hand up for everything. So I got a lot of opportunities at QBS where there was a pool house that needed to be built, a minor dwelling. I was coming up to the end of my apprenticeship and I said, oh, pick me. Can I please do that one? It was going to, a guy who'd been building for 20 years. He didn't care what he was working on. And I was like, I know he's doing the main house. Could I please just do this one So I could just test my own skills.
Yeah.
It's a mini house, right? It's got all the basics, A to Z of building. And Troy was like, yeah, mate, go for it. No skin off my back. So you definitely need to put your hand up and make it known what your big plans are. I think a lot of company owners, unfortunately, maybe aren't prioritizing your career. You know, they're just trying to make ends meet right now, like trying to get the next project. They're not really thinking about like, oh, what does Brad want to do with his life? So if you have got aspirations to go into project management with the company that you're working with, make it known. Otherwise you'll be waiting a while, you know, for that seat to open up. And maybe there won't be a seat. So that's why you should make it known. Maybe the boss goes, look, mate, we just can't afford to pay a project manager. You know, we're a 3-man band. We don't have PMs. I'm the PM. But I think, and same for if you're looking for a job, you've just got to tell everyone, you know.
Yeah.
The industry runs on word of mouth. So you definitely just need to communicate.
Yeah. No, I think that's
Yeah.
really good advice for guys coming up, or girls coming up through as well. Because it's like if they just, because sometimes I guess they're scared, right? Tell their boss, these are my aspirations, because the boss might try to do whatever.
And there are some bosses that will
not like that.
Maybe you don't tell your boss. You know your boss better than me. Maybe they're the kind of guy that goes, oh, what? Nah, get out of here. Give you the flick. So
Yeah.
look, I don't want anyone getting fired on my account, but I found that there was quite a few guys who were waiting for opportunities that never came because they didn't ask.
Yeah.
And knowing Troy, if they had have asked, it would have come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got a good social media following, 5,000 followers.
Is that right?
That's good.
Cool.
Yeah, that's really good. A lot of people are interested, right, in your journey. What are your thoughts on, you know, there's a lot of business owners out there that are afraid of social media or don't really understand it or might not want to use it or put themselves out there as much. I know Troy, your old boss, that does it a lot, and it's been very beneficial for him. What are your thoughts or advice for people using social media to get sort of themselves a little bit more out there? And do you have any tips for them to grow their following?
As builders or companies?
As builders that are business owners.
Social media is huge. I think QBS has done really well with it to just earn themselves a reputation amongst builders. So not necessarily clients. I know we've had clients who we have reached through social media. That's how we got these projects. It kind of it's just another avenue, right? Like you need to diversify your marketing, and that is the way the world's heading. Most people are on Instagram or Facebook. So if you're trying to reach an audience and tell people that you exist as a business, it just makes sense. I think it's kind of a no-brainer in today's world. Also, construction is so visual. Content options are endless. It's like, why wouldn't you? And it's quite easy. Social media is quite user-friendly, right? You don't need to be too tech-savvy. You don't need to hire anyone to do it for you. What I would say is it's pretty time-consuming, especially if you're going to commit to it, like the way that if you're going to maybe engage a photographer to come to site, that's cool, but the time that it takes to post and reply to everyone and just generate like meaningful content is very time-consuming.
Yeah.
But you could pay someone to do it. There's quite a few, and I've always thought this, and I'm glad it's happening now. It's a really good avenue for anyone in photography or drone footage, you know, to go out to companies and say, look, pay me this amount, and I'll generate some content for you. And it's good to see that it's happening more and more now.
Yeah, it's such a good way to kind of just get your projects out there. I've always found that a lot of builders are amazing at their craft, and they actually work on incredible projects, and then they do such a poor job of actually
celebrating it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think our clients really loved it as well. They would get a time lapse of their house basically getting constructed, their dream home, their family home that they're going to keep for years. There's all the behind the scenes, what's behind the walls, coming together. And I don't know if Troy does this, but we should definitely give them like a little folder.
Yeah.
Or some sort of, you know, a little memento to be like, this is all the things that happen to get you to the, you know, ground that you're on now.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. Troy? if you're listening.
Do it.
What are some of the worst advice you've heard out there in terms of people getting into building or even getting project management? Any bad advice?
There's definitely, I don't know if it's bad advice, but there's definitely people who will tell you you can't do it. And some days they're right. Some days like, I couldn't do it. You just got to block out the noise, I think, and just prove them wrong. Let it fuel your fire. Bad advice. I think there's a lot of health and safety things. People are like, go lift this. Don't forget, as an apprentice or as a builder, you are your own. It's your body, right? So don't be putting yourself on your line. Don't be standing. I've seen some real crazy things where people are just putting their lives and their bodies on the line for the job. Like, you're 4 stories up, get off that roof. I know he said you need to go and do those whatever, but don't. You're in charge, and that's probably the one thing you can do as a builder. You can just say, it's not safe, I'm not doing it. So some of the worst advice, I guess, I've seen is people going and doing really dangerous things because their foreman or their boss told them to.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's kind of your career is dependent on your body. And so
Absolutely.
if you have to treat it as such.
And it's all over. There were quite a few guys who injured themselves and had to leave building. Their backs were gone, their knees, yeah. Once you're done, you're done. So look after yourself.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And I think the
advice.
foreman and, the people in charge sometimes forget that.
What is success to you?
Ooh, that's a big one. I think I'm living it. I could die tomorrow and I'd be happy. I like to tell people that just so that if I do die, watch this back, I was happy. I think it's constantly evolving. I'm living it. I don't know what success is. It's just being happy in what you do. I've loved my job. I love waking up, going to work. I love my life. I love my friends, my husband, opportunities like this. Like, life's good. I'm in a ball of success, I guess. Yeah.
I think that's such a refreshing answer, eh? Because there's definitely a skill of how to live well that we have. I don't feel like I've nailed yet,
Yeah.
And you can go make a whole bunch of money and stuff like that, and there's definitely that's really important to make money, and because that gives you freedoms. But I think that there's also another element that we all can focus on a bit more as well, which is learning how to live well, being present in the moment, like what you're talking about now, and just being happy with the journey. Yeah. And that it's not all about work, and it's not all about just grind.
Yeah.
And you sort of slow down and sort of smell the roses sometimes.
I definitely have 5-year plans, I do set goals and targets, and so when I've just reached one, right? I've got to be a project manager. That's success. That to me, I'm like, you did it. Awesome. Write a new one. What are we doing now? What are we doing in the next 5 years? I'm not going to say it because it's a secret. But yeah, I got another plan. And so success to me is just like keep making goals, keep working towards those goals. I'm happy. Money's never really been a driver for me. My parents instilled that in me, that things and finances are not that important. But it's important. I do understand why people are driven by money, and all power to you. If that's how you measure success, that's awesome. But for me, I could be paid, half of what I'm getting paid. Don't tell the boss, but I could be getting paid half and I'd still be happy.
Okay, I was going to ask you what your vision is beyond project management. But
I would love to own and operate my own company, but I would love to first learn how to operate anything. Just because you're a good builder doesn't mean you'll be a good owner. That is a whole different beast. Learning how to manage clients, learning how to manage people. People are the main thing. When you're building, if you're the builder, you're quite often away from the client, or the people you deal with are the same people all the time. But in this new role, I'm talking to so many different people. And learning how to negotiate and kind of communicate, I guess, with all sorts of different temperaments and cultures and ages, and that's a skill that needs to be learned. I don't know if everyone's born with that. And that's a huge part of owning a business, right? Is just people. And then there's the finances, the contracts. There's a lot to it. So that's my goal eventually. I don't know if it'll be in building. Building, construction, it's a bit of a saturated market, like in terms of building companies. I think most of the, another stat that I'm probably going to butcher, but it's like most of the industry is 1 or 2 man bands. So most of the building companies out there right now, I think 80% are 1 or 2 people only.
Wow, didn't know that.
It's huge. Yeah. So if I was going to do it, I would want to do it in a meaningful way, have employees, and do it well.
You know, the building industry aren't doing well when it comes to, you know, mental health. Builders have some of the worst, you know, mental health stats. Divorce rates are pretty high compared to the average. How do you deal with, you know, you're a positive person, but how do you deal with when things don't go right and you get setbacks or you get in a bit of a funk?
How did I deal with it? I had a really good support network at home. I actually had a really good support network at work. So I've touched on it a few times, but I worked with a really good group of guys. So I didn't have, if I was ever in a funk, it wasn't actually to do with the people I was working with. It was probably more to do with, I don't know, something going on at home or some bad news, a loss, something like that. So I had a really good, you know, I could go to the team that I was working with and be like, guys, it's not my day. You know, just I'll go work over by myself today. You know, that little monotonous job for the apprentice, can I do it today? And kind of just take a break in that sense. I also wear my heart on my sleeve, and I think a lot of the guys knew when today was not my day, so that would just kind of leave me alone. Yeah, I wouldn't say, I think there's still room for improvement for everyone to communicate and actually openly say, today's not my day. But it really comes down to creating that safe space. So you've got your company and you've got your company culture, but then you've also got your site and your site culture. For us, our sites, because our projects, they could be 3 people, typically 3, like your 3 core people. But at a busy period, you're looking at 5, 6, 7, or 8 people. And so those 3 kind of set the culture, set the tone for when those 8 show up. It really does come down to the leadership. So the foreman, when you're talking, so you got your culture in your company and that's your boss. They set that tone, but then on site, it's your foreman. And quite often a foreman, it becomes a foreman because they're good at building. No one taught them how to be a leader. So especially if you've come from school, you've done 8 years on the tools, now you're in charge. No, at no point in your career did anyone go, okay, here's what you do when someone's having a bad day, or here's what you do when so-and-so are arguing. And building is really unique where you, I don't know, when you go to work, you probably spend a lot of time on the computer, isolated. You spend a lot of time on the phone, just you and that person. Building is really unique where you and me, we're talking all day, 9 hours, like, pass me this, pass me that, hold this, hold that. All right, I'm ready, let's go. And you are side by side in each other's face. You're really like, yeah, it's just the 2 of you. So it can get pretty tough, especially if you don't gel with your team. And so that's where it comes down to making sure that you've got a wider team that are all like-minded and similar. And then when you're working in those partnerships, maybe if you, the boss, notice that there's just 2 guys that just are not getting along, split them up because it's not going to be pretty for anyone.
When builders are working so close together, they're talking all day, but they still find it quite hard to, if it's not their day, it's not a normal thing to communicate that, right? very
No.
openly.
No,
So it's
not. But I think, for me anyway, like I think I can read people, and I think I can tell. I could tell when so-and-so was having a bad day. You ask, are you all good, bro? And you get a, yeah. And funnily enough, this is where I think a woman provides value. Quite often the guys would open up to me because I think they knew they weren't going to be judged for being vulnerable. So they'd go, oh, the missus just, and launch into it. Or my mum is sick, or whatever it might be. My bro, I don't know, he's moved overseas and now I've got no bestie anymore. I kind of liked being that ear for them. So that's, definitely something I noticed, is that a lot of guys just felt, maybe because the women in their lives are kind and caring, that, empathy is something that I probably naturally possess.
that definitely brings a bit of benefit and different changes the culture a little bit of the site as well.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we've pretty much like covered a lot of it. I've got a few like rapid fire questions.
Okay.
That I'll take you through, and then
Go ahead.
And if you're happy with that, and you can pass on them as well. Okay, you ready? Okay, so in office or on site?
Oh, no. On site.
Your DMs, are they juicy or professional?
Professional, always.
Love it. Makeup or no makeup on site?
No makeup.
Pink tool belt, yeah or nah?
Each to their own.
Builders are A, filthy, B, hilarious, C, softies.
Be hilarious.
Project management software or spreadsheets?
Project management software. Definitely.
Chippies or consultants?
Chippies.
EV or petrol?
Petrol.
Taylor Swift or classic rock?
Taylor Swift. I'll let her have it.
Jock or hippie?
Hippie.
Are you too mean or too nice in your new role?
Too nice.
It's a problem. Are you
Is
extrovert? Nah, probably not. Are you extrovert or introvert?
Oh, can I sit in the middle?
Yeah, you can.
Good.
I'll allow it.
I literally am.
This is normally a guy question. Motocross or fishing? But,
I love fishing. We own a boat. We go fishing all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. Favorite business or non-business book?
Oh, I'm reading one by Indra Nooyi at the moment. She was the global CEO of Pepsi, and she
Cool.
wrote a bio about how she rose to the top. It's very good.
Awesome. It's like an autobiography.
Yeah.
Who is your business or life hero at the moment?
Oh, my life hero is my mum, hands down. She kind of, paved the way for me.
Cool. Strong woman.
Yeah, she's awesome. We didn't really touch on her, but she grew up in a house. Grandma had 17 kids. 14
Wow.
of them were girls, and my grandfather passed away when they were quite young, and so when she was quite young, she was one of the youngest ones, and there weren't really girl jobs or boy jobs. They were just jobs, and so my mum, she didn't really ever tell me the world's your oyster, you can be whatever you want to be. She never vocally said that, but she definitely showed me. And so her behaviour is definitely set mine. That's where I learnt that. I mean, she was up on my roof like not that long ago cleaning my gutters. And our house is 2 stories. Like, get off the roof, Mum, you're 65. But she can do anything. She fixed my washing machine the other day. So definitely life hero, Mum.
That's awesome. Just the attitude, can-do attitude, eh? I love it.
Yeah, just walk the walk.
Yeah. What's your favourite hobby?
Snowboarding.
What's one thing no one knows about you?
Well, why would I say it on a podcast if no one knows it about me?
It's a silly question, but I
yeah.
just thought you might want to give me something juicy. But
I've got nothing for you, sorry. It'll stay unknown.
are you alpha or beta?
Alpha.
Of course. Wine or cocktail?
Cocktails. Wine's gross.
Makita, DeWalt, or Milwaukee?
DeWalt.
Ryobi?
Oh, there's a place for Ryobi. There's a place for all 3 of those. But in my house, there's only a place for DeWalt.
Glass half empty or glass half full?
Full. Can you tell?
I can tell, yeah. Do you think more about the past or about the future?
Future.
Live fast and die young or live slow and die old?
live slow and die, or live fast and die old. I don't know. Just live.
That's it.
Cool.
Did you have fun?
Rapid fire. Yeah, that was great.
Awesome.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And I think a lot of there's a lot of builders out there would find this very helpful and informative, but also a lot of female builders, dare I say, or future female builders out there that might be thinking about getting into the industry that might have, got the push.
Do it. That was kind of the point of me coming on here. Do it. I love my time. If you're considering doing a trade, you've got to try it at least. Do your 3 months.
Yeah. Come on, girls. Get out there.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Bex.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
See ya.